Welcome to Built-In Boost, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes at the DDS companies, where we're laying the foundation for tomorrow's infrastructure. In each episode, we bring you the real stories from the people who make it all happen, honoring everyone from the field to the front office. Join us as we explore their journeys, uncover the lessons they've learned, and show you how to build a rewarding career in the civil construction industry. If you're ready to learn from those who've built their success from the ground up, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Jordan Potter here, and welcome back to the Built-In Boost podcast. We've just wrapped up our road show series where we hit the road to bring you on-site stories from the field, straight from the folks doing the work every day. I really hope you enjoyed getting the behind-the-scenes view of our crews in action. Now, we're shifting gears into a brand new construction season, and there's a lot to be fired up about. Fresh off our 2025 Leadership Summit series, we're rolling out our new mission, Masters of the Underground. Trust me, it's more than just a slogan. It's our driving force for how we tackle everyday jobs, day in and day out. Today's episode dives into what Masters of the Underground really means, how it raises the bar for our work, shapes our culture, and pushes each of us to be even better. So stick around. This conversation sets the stage for a huge season ahead. Let's jump in. I'm joined today with, of course, my co-host, Mark Payne. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. We are coming off the heels of the Road Show series. What do you think of that series?
I had a great time with it. When we were out there actually with the crews, I had a great time, and I thought that all of our conversations went well.
I did too. I think everybody really enjoyed it. I think we're getting really good feedback from those episodes. So speaking of coming off the heels, we are coming off the heels of the 2025 Leadership Summits.
Yes. You could almost say Summit Series.
So let's talk about that. So in the room today, we've got Griffin Haley and Mike Fallat. In this discussion, we're going to have a little bit of a reflection on the leadership summits, and we're going to dive into some of the principles that we shared in that summit.
Yeah,
so
I think that sounds like a pretty good place to start, especially considering timing and everything else.
So, hey, before we jump in, I want to hear about your summit. You just did a little foreman kickoff, right?
We did.
Yeah.
I think for the past 3 to 4 years, we haven't been doing this for that long of a time. When we moved into the Cortland office, we decided that we were getting to the size where it made sense to hold a foreman kickoff meeting. We used to all be able to fit in one room at that time. This most recent one that we had, all of the foremen, all of the number twos, all of our meter technicians, we actually had to rent space because there was so many people.
Oh, in the middle shop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We held that at a conference center right there in Cortland, and we actually held that kickoff meeting after the summit. So all of our guys kind of had, fresh in mind, everything that we talked about in the summit, which we're going to talk about today. So it was really good timing to kind of kick off with those guys and review, everything that we talked about in the leadership summit. Overall, it was really, really good. It was a full day. We went through kind of in the details, a lot of the things that we want to make sure the guys are doing to hold true to our core values, our principles, and I think it was well received. It was quite long. I mean, it was a full day event.
Yeah, it was a full day, but it was well spent time. I feel like the guys took a lot out of that.
I mean, it's hard to do because it takes another day of sitting in a classroom and all that, but you do work out some kinks of just IT, whether it's paperwork, administrative, if there's any customer changes and how we need to do the work, getting everybody in one place and just setting a clear objective before we kick off and get out there in the street and spread out is a must do.
I think one of the things too is, we had all of our senior foremen come here in Rochester and attend the Leadership Summit. They got to feel that and learn from that and absorb that. What we wanted to do going into the season is try to trickle that down into the guys working in the field. So like the number 2 guys, try to relay or parlay that information further down into the organization.
Yeah, it's great that you guys did that. I feel like this year, maybe more so than last year because it's our second year in a row, there was a lot of takeaways from this summit that folks were able to wrap up and use in their own way for their own groups. You know, and it might only be a few, might be a lot. I feel like there was a lot said that could be reutilized specific to each division, to each discipline in the worlds we live in.
So, Griffin, what did you think of this year's Leadership Summit?
I thought it was awesome. Honestly, it was really nice, especially we did the engineers. We just finished up with the engineers one. That was cool. Seeing a different side of those guys and night and day difference, like we talked about all day.
180.
Oh, yeah.
180 for
Got
sure.
in a line, signed right up.
Not
Signed
in a bad way.
first.
Not in a bad way.
No,
just different.
everybody's got their different quirks. It was very cool to see.
So, different from last year, we held our first Leadership Summit in 2024. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just field leadership at that point, wasn't it, Mike?
It was not field. It was PMs and supervisors also.
Okay.
So we started with the idea of foreman only. And I think that's why it sometimes still has the legacy name of Foreman Leadership Summit, but it's really all leadership from foremen, number twos, all the way up to executives and everything in between.
What was different this year?
We had more time to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year was a bit of a napkin sketch idea. And again, there was no expectations because we never have done that before from either us who facilitated the idea or the senior team that was there to facilitate the class itself and the summit itself. So this year we had more time to plan. I think we were more thoughtful about certain things, whereas last year was a bit of a let's just roll it out there and kind of fly off the seat of our pants and let it be what it is, you know. And this year was a little bit more dialed in, I'd say.
I think it was too. I mean, I attended both sessions and both of them were great. Different from last year, there was 2 sessions with the amount of people that we had to attend it. This year, there was a total of 3, correct?
Correct. There was 3, yeah. And we expanded the roster quite a bit. Last year, you probably know, Mark, about 100 people total
Yeah, roughly.
with engineers. This year was probably 140 with engineers.
Yeah, about 130, 140.
You know, so quite a bit more. And we split it up into 3 because of that. But it wasn't completely because of that either. I think it would have been tough to not let construction and all the things that we need to talk about as we're facing a construction season dominate what the summit was meant to be. And as an engineer sitting in the room with a construction dominant conversation might have been less impactful. So I liked the idea that we were just with the engineers for these past couple of days talking about all engineering. You lose a little bit of the camaraderie in between because you don't have folks in the same room. And I think we need to figure that out for next year because there's a lot of power in that.
I think sitting in the engineering specific leadership summit, there was a lot of content about planning.
Yeah.
You know, they really kind of went into that a lot. And I think a lot of the guys in the field, when they look at projects, they're looking at it from a construction only perspective. A lot of the guys don't understand what it takes to execute on a project in an office environment like the engineers do and how to put a project like that together. So I think having the 2 teams together, I think that would be a cool collaboration. I think you would get some really great content out of it.
Yeah.
I think if you ever could pull that off and get both in the room at the same time, I think you would see some good come out of that.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that we should be doing because we have the fortunate ability to have all this under one roof, you know, and not all companies do. So from a constructability standpoint, we want our engineers to know construction better than any other engineering firm out there because they have it right upstairs. A whole floor full of experts that are in the construction space, and that's all they do, and vice versa. From an engineering standpoint, we want our construction folks in the field to have a relative knowledge of what it takes to design the things that they're building. And this company originated on the premise of a turnkey solution that can be provided from raw earth to new infrastructure, you know, design and build. So I think we owe it. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the legacy of the company to make sure that constructability and being experts of the craft in that way, whether it's design or building, is top of our list.
So that actually leads into kind of the theme of the entire summit itself. We kind of rolled this out. We talked about this in the Leadership Summit, and we I would say it's a new mission.
Sure. Yep.
And really it's about clarity around how we're moving forward and how
I would say it's a new mission and a new mission statement.
So why don't you just unveil it?
We're masters of the underground. We're masters of the underground. So I'll give maybe a little bit of a glimpse into why. So we rolled out last year a mission and a vision for the company, and I can't even tell you what it was off the top of my head. I mean, it made sense at the time and it resonated at the time, and not that nobody's bought into it because they are, but it was just complex, a little bit too wordy, you know? Felt like it came out of a textbook from somebody that has a master's degree, something like that. And not that we're not smart people because we are, but it just wasn't simple. It wasn't catchy. It wasn't easy to remember. So we essentially summarized a new mission and a new vision in a simple statement of Masters of the Underground. I'll give a majority of the credit to our parent company, Arterra, who is on a mission themselves to become masters of the underground from a global standpoint, from a platform standpoint. But we as DDS, I think it resonated with us and really hit home maybe more so than others because we truly already are on a path to be masters of the underground in each space of the words, if you will. And then we have a design and an engineering, space as well, which really connect those dots, really bring it full circle. So this originated under the premise of let's put something out there that's more simple, that everybody can relate to, that we can all drive towards and remember throughout the year and actually use.
I think it was a smart move as far as creating clarity around who we are, what we do. Because if you really look at who we are and what we do, we truly are masters of the underground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud to say that. I think a lot of the guys have pride in what they do in each of their crafts. And it's impressive when you look at it. I think last year during the summit, a lot of people's eyes opened up when they saw the breadth of the company, when they saw the size of the company. They got to see at each station, the engineers, the telecommunication group, the energy services, the gas distribution. They saw all of that, the heavy civil side. And they're like, wow, I didn't know we offered that.
Mm-hmm.
And, a year later, here we are, we're going to march to the drum of Masters of the Underground, and everybody jived with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that is truly unique about DDS is each of those spaces that you just rattled off, each of the 5 divisions, we're truly an expert of our own craft in those divisions, right? There's a leadership team structure within those divisions. There's skilled labor specific to each of those trades, each of those scopes. We have our own customers. We have our own competitors. We live in our own space, if you will, in each of those silos. But the cool part is we're not siloed as a company. We all work together as a leadership team. We're able to share resources if we're heavy in one and light in the other. So it's not siloed to the effect that it's a problem. Mm-hmm. It's siloed to the effect that we use that to our advantage to be the best competitor, if you will, in that space on our own.
It really is an advantage. We talk about collaboration between the divisions. We talked about this in a session that I attended. And, I'll just give a quick story of something that happened last year. And it's a perfect shining example of the strength of DDS. So last summer, I was working on a job. It was in Ithaca, New York. DDS engineers actually performed the design on this project. We had the design well in advance, no issues, no conflicts that were found. We got notification from the city of Ithaca that they're going to be ready for us to come and perform the gas work. The project itself was a bridge project going across the river in Ithaca. They had the entire intersection closed. So I basically did my due diligence. I showed up on the site, basically have a conversation with the construction crews that was out there doing that bridge work, and basically immediately found a conflict in the design. And that was the bridge deck itself was a radius. It was an arch that basically went across the river. Well, the drawings didn't catch that. And the gas pipe was actually designed to go straight across. And so if we were to do that, the gas pipe itself would actually hang feet lower than the bottom of the beams on the bridge. And they would be exposed to floodwaters. Mm-hmm. So it was basically immediate bust. Mm-hmm. Well, there was extreme amount of pressure on the construction side to get this done because the bridge deck was going to get poured in 2 weeks. Basically hell or high water.
And they weren't going to change the bridge design.
And they're not changing the bridge design. So what did we do? So got on the phone with Arna. He's a phenomenal engineer for DDS, and he went into immediate problem-solving mode and collaboration mode. The solution that we found was he actually had to do calculations of the radius of the bridge once it was under its full load and basically create a bending profile for the 12-inch gas main to span in between the I-beams and match the same radius, the same profile of the bridge. So
those guys are so damn smart. Just spending a few days with them, they're just such a smart group of people.
So it gets better. It gets better. So we get through the engineering problem first. Is it feasible? Was the next question. Constructability, right? So we had to immediately involve our energy services division. We have a very talented group of guys over there. Casey, some of you guys may have worked with him. He is a genius on that bending machine. He actually bent the pipe to the perfect radius.
Wow. It's like an art.
It is.
It's an art form. You watch them do it because you got to stand back and you got to visualize.
Oh,
you know, it's not like you get a number and you just punch in the number in the machine and let it rip.
So he did it at the shop in Cortland. So he basically, and we had to fabricate it on site after the fact. So he bent the pipe. We welded it in the field. We had it all strung out together.
When you say bend the pipe, what diameter?
12-inch steel.
Yeah, so 12-inch steel. It's not like, pipe bending that folks are used to. It's a bending machine. It's a pretty involved process.
Yeah, you're right. So for the folks that don't know the process, I mean, there's limitations on how much you can actually bend pipe, but believe it or not, you can actually put small, bends in the pipe over the length of that pipe and actually create a radius out of it. So he did that phenomenally well. And the big challenge was once you had this pipe, welded together on site, we had to then get it in between the I-beams of the bridge, and it had to fit perfectly between the abutments. Okay, so we had to hire a crane. We had to come up with a lifting plan to be able to lift this up and then basically cradle it in between, drop it into one of the abutments, slide it past, drop it all the way down so it matched the actual I-beams, and then slide it back the other direction so that it went into the
tie-in point.
Yeah. Basically, it was a core drill through the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like threading the needle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
We're on pins and needles as this thing is strung up 100 feet in the air and getting casted in place. And wouldn't you believe it? It fit perfect. Fit like a glove. It was amazing. It was amazing to see it. Customer was blown away that we even were able to pull this off, let alone do it in the time frame that we had. And I look back at that and I think, dang, like it was only because of the team that we had here. It was the field team on the distribution side. It was Andy's crew. It was Casey's crew. It was Arna. I mean, it was everybody coming together to make sure that project was a success. And I don't know if there's any other company that could have done that.
Yeah. So how'd the customer feel about that?
Blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, I got calls and emails. I mean, they literally had all of their engineers out there watching this all happen. And it's in the construction teams from NYSEG were all there to witness this. It was pretty impressive.
That's cool. That's awesome. I mean, that is one of the unique things that we bring to the table is all those different skill sets and being an expert in each of those different crafts, right? And that's what makes it special. That's what makes it fun, is you get to see all those things work together and how they intertwine. It's a unique thing. Usually you'll get a company that is heavy into civil and they might do a little bit of gas work, right? They might have one crew that does gas work just because it's a nice to have,
right.
Or you might have a gas company that's heavy in the transmission space or heavy in the regulator station space or the compressor stations, and they can build pads. So they can build roads, right? So then they have a civil branch, quote unquote civil branch, but I haven't quite seen a company out there that can truly stand alone in its own space and have a project management group that's managing civil projects and executing civil projects, that has an energy services group that is in the transmission space and can compete with the Michaels of the world.
Yeah.
And have it all under one roof and actually work together and be a cohesive leadership team that's doing things for the right reasons, right? So it's special stuff.
It's impressive. Yeah. It really is. When you look at the entire unit, the companies across the platform, we truly are masters of the underground. Like I said before, I'm proud to be part of it. And I'd really like to talk about, some of the principles behind what it means to become a master of anything, right? We're here to become masters of the underground and not only set the standard, but maintain that.
Yeah. So one of the things we're going to talk about these commandments, right? And it's going to take a little bit of time. But before we do, it was apparent that in the room this week, there's a lot of new individuals. And I thought about, if I was here and I've only been here for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 8 weeks, what would be my perception of this that's going on, these clear objectives for the year that we're setting and all that stuff. And I'd be interested, Griff, into your view, because you are our face of the company in many cases to new people that are onboarded here. You run our new employee orientation. You're a lot of times the first interaction that anybody has here at DDS, and then that's what they perceive us to be, probably throughout their career, even after they're out on job. How do you feel these things serve new employees that come here that are fresh?
If they sat through it and they, were only here 2, 3, 4 weeks and then went through this leadership summit, I mean, I would say from personal experience, they would have to be blown away. I mean, one of the resounding comments I always get during NEO is, man, I didn't think I'd ever go back to school in construction or something to that effect. You guys have an whole area for training up here. Like, you do a week of new hire. It's absurd, but I got to imagine they see it, especially sitting in there. Even the last, the field guys we had some assistant PMs and some PMs that haven't been there, long enough to go to the summit in 24. I talk about a buy-in factor for a company, seeing how much they want to put in, forget the time, money, and thought process that you tie up into it, but just the commitment from DDS to their people and what they want to put in.
You know what was a really cool thing after summit number 1? So we hand out these vests, right? And they're all the same branded vests, say the same things, they look the same. That's for a reason. That's intentional. And after the first summit, it was a Saturday, there was 2 individuals that were at a dance competition for their daughters, right? And they spotted each other. They didn't know each other, But one guy walked up to another guy and he said, hey, I see your vest. I'm wearing the vest too. They both had the same vest on Saturday after the conference, and they started to talk. And I caught up with one of them Monday morning, and one's in finance, the other is a foreman in the field. And one of the comments that were said from the gentleman out in the field was when they were talking about the summit and the experience itself, he goes, I hope I never need to get a job anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about this place as a family, a work family, and a meaningful purpose that I have professionally in what I do. And you just don't get that a lot in construction. Construction tends to be the plan B, if you can't make it somewhere else. And I feel like we're doing our part into rising the tide with that, because it's truly not. Sean in the past has referred to our employee base as industrial athletes. And when you think about what they do every day, what they face, the risks they face, the type of knowledge they need to have, the skill set they need to have, the practice, there's a lot going on out there that they need to do really well if we're going to do our jobs well. Similar to a sports team where you need to learn X, Y, and Z and then go out there and perform when it's time to perform. It's a cool thing. So when you hear things like that, when you hear stories like that, and you think you're doing the things right, but then you actually hear it out there in reality, we'll call it, it hits a little bit differently. So
yeah, no doubt. That's a cool part of my role too, is after 30, 60, 90 days, definitely on that 90-day mark, I'm able to go back and touch base with those guys that I saw in January, and it's awesome to hear that feedback all the time.
And we've seen it too in our attrition. Our attrition year over year has dropped like through the floor, which is what you want, right? And especially our attrition after 90 days is down to under 3%, which is awesome stuff, because
that's awesome.
That means that, there's going to be this in-between period where you're getting to know each other, you're getting to know the industry. Some folks just might not be a good fit because that's not what they want,
right?
Vice versa. But after 90 days, the trial period's kind of over. You kind of understand what you're into. And if you're losing people after that 90-day mark, there's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
It's not just we're flushing out the butterflies.
Right.
It's
not the work.
It's not the work.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think what really keeps people here, because the work is tough. There's just no way around it. The work is complex. It's challenging. Even the engineering too. It's a complex job. Is the purpose and the culture and the reason why we do what we do outside of just the daily tasks.
A couple thoughts that have came across my mind while we've been talking, having somebody recognize somebody else because of a vest at a dance competition on a weekend. That's pretty cool. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
But, going back to what Jordan was talking about earlier with, bringing two different divisions together on a single project, actually 3 different divisions together on a single project. In a lot of cases in the past, those individuals may never have worked together before or may not even know each other. The folks leading those groups. After the first set of leadership summits, we had a lot of that collaboration going on. Casey may know somebody else on the Gas D side now, or maybe somebody in civil where they need this excavator in order to make this all work, or whatever else. A lot of the collaboration piece that goes on here is insanely important.
And we live in such a fast-paced world that if you need a problem fixed, it's got to be fixed now. Right. So if you don't know somebody or you're not comfortable calling somebody because the foundation of that relationship isn't built, then you're not going to make that phone call. You're just going to move on in the way that to go fix the problem. So the fact that we've expanded the phone book, we'll call it, of folks that have resources that are brothers and sisters to their division is really what the impact of our company as a whole brings to the table.
Right. A lot of that's happening during the summit, but a lot of that's happening in the hours around the summit as well. Some of the fun things that we're able to do together, breaking bread together and things like that.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of those bonds are built.
Yeah.
Hey, what job did you work on? Oh, yeah, I know about this part. What about this part? Those pieces are insanely important.
Yeah.
So heading towards the commandments, though.
Sure.
A lot of those commandments tie right back to that whole piece as well. As a group, I feel like we've expanded our knowledge base exponentially because of the relationships that we've built throughout bringing everybody together.
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that summit definitely, for me personally, the collaboration piece, it really offers that relationship segue, so to speak, into, oh, wait, I remember this guy at the summit that I met, and he said he did this. And all of a sudden now you're bringing a solution to a customer. You're offering real value. Last year, the amount of value that was provided to the customer and the amount of headache that was avoided because of how quickly we responded to that, how quickly we solved the problem. It didn't happen with one division. It happened as a united front.
I think this extrapolates into many different things, but another quick story on where this quickly built momentum was we recently added a company to our team, Mid-South, engineering and consultant, and boring and piping. There's two separate divisions, construction division and an engineering division. And post-closing of that event, a customer came to Mid-South and they said, hey, we have a project that we'd like to give you guys, but the original deadline is April 1, and that's not going to work for us. It's got to be February 1. So if you have available resources to dedicate to that project, and you can pull the date essentially in half, cut the project in half from a schedule standpoint, then it's yours to have, to run with. And in previous years, the founder of that company would have said, no, I don't have the people to do that right now. You're going to drop it in my lap kind of in the middle of all these other things going on. But again, we're weeks after post-closing of that event, right? And so Bob called me, who's the founder, and he said, hey, I got this opportunity. If you have crews available, I could take it. I know they'll give it to us. And we did. So within a week, we hooked up Bob and John Kupiak, who runs our energy services group. Mark and his team got involved. We OQ'd our folks here that we were able to dedicate to that project. And within 1 week of that phone call, we had boots on the ground, on the job, 2 crews running in tandem, working towards each other to get it done. It was a linear project. And we hit the date on January 29th, right?
That's amazing.
But that opportunity never would have came to fruition if that connection wasn't made, the relationship wasn't built to use both of the resource sets that we have to complete one task, one project. And then Clint, who's the superintendent at Mid-South, he attended one of our leadership events, and that became full circle when he met all the people that were kind of behind the scenes of making that work, making that happen. And now there's a bond between, Rick Cantrell, you were the superintendent here. Oh, Casey Hitson, you were out on the project. And these are all the crewmates that you guys have. And just creating that connection point is such a huge thing for us in building the bridge to success.
That is an awesome story. I met both Bob Conrad and Clint last leadership session, and great guys. Yeah. I mean, culturally, they fit perfect.
The other thing it was our opportunity to walk the walk, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This was a new thing for everybody. And we could preach all great things about the culture and the company and the guys and all that, but we got to go show them within a few weeks of post-closing. And it doesn't always go that way. We've been through a little bit of this ourselves on the other end of the table, and it feels good to do it the right way.
From my perspective on that, for us to go out and walk the walk, that was huge. We deployed, we went to them, we delivered training with them, shoulder to shoulder, and they saw what we did and how we did it and how we interacted with our folks, and it was well received.
There was quite a bit of unsurety at the time. Mid-South, they don't know us. We're some company from New York that's showing up, and we're shaking hands, and it's all smiles and that kind of stuff. But when they got to actually work side by side with the crew and realize, okay, this is the kind of men they are, this is how they lead the company, that unsurety goes away quite quick.
It does. Day one, I was right there shoulder to shoulder with Casey, and we're standing on the job together. And, we're at the actual kickoff meeting with all the guys from Mid-South and everything else. Yeah. And there was some uncertainty, but there was a lot of smiles and handshaking. And, we all seemed to kick it off really well. And
it was pretty easy to convince our boys to go down to Mississippi here in a cold winter in New York. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how to get them back up this way.
Yeah, they were
they're still down there now. Yeah.
Wait until it gets hot, maybe.
Well, they keep stacking jobs in front of them now because they want to keep them down there. So I think we're on our 3rd job right now. So we're trying to get them back up this way to get some work done up here. But no, it couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah. No, I was really proud to be a part of that one and actually be there on the ground with those guys.
Yeah, it was a cool experience all around.
As we turn the corner here, I really want to dive deep into what you called the 8 commandments of a master. I thought that these principles, they orbit around our core values here, which is safety, accountability, and quality. And I think it was very well received, these commandments, these principles, because they may not know it, but these are the principles that they're living by. And you might be stronger in one and weaker in another, but just by knowing about it and kind of laying it out the way that you did, you bring clarity, you shine a light on maybe what you need to work on personally. Yeah. And I think no one's perfect. We all need to work on something, and us being able to work on ourselves is only going to make us better. I guess let's go through these. There's 8 commandments of becoming a master. And the first one is take ownership.
Take extreme ownership.
Take extreme ownership.
Don't forget the extreme part.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of background before we jump into each one. They kind of were born out of a few different things. The summits obviously were one of them, but we had an event at our headquarters in February called Accelerate. It's a leadership event that's put on for OPCO presidents, vice presidents, and the C-suite out of Atlanta. And Billy Kidd, who's a new teammate of ours at SEC, we'll call him a cousin now. new to the team. Him and I had to give a presentation on development and culture, right? And part of what I discussed in the culture section was a few of these commandments. So it was kind of a combination of that event, a lot of other things that were said. Billy had some great points during his portion that we pulled away and created this wheel, if you will, which is a spinning wheel around our triangle. The other part that this serves is our triangle is meant to be just that if one leg of the triangle falls apart, so does the other two legs. And the whole thing doesn't work. Safety is an easy one to explain, an easy one to relate to for everybody that's part of our workforce, whether you're an engineer or a brand new laborer, and so is quality. That's the workmanship of the work that we're putting in place. But accountability has always kind of been this gray area of what does it mean to go be accountable? And part of this new ethos or mission, Masters of the Underground, is what does accountability mean? And how can you be a master of the underground in an accountable way to yourself, one, but your teammates too? So the wheel is meant to be how we tie back the accountability core value of who we are, knowing that it can't fall apart, and extrapolate that into both you as an individual and then you as a professional here at work.
Yeah, that triangle that we wear on our gear, you see it everywhere. You see it on the trucks. Last year it was introduced. We talked about it. Wasn't introduced. It was
it's actually been around probably 10 or 15 years. But one change that we made a few years back was it used to be safety, quality, productivity. And we changed it to accountability probably in 2019. And the reason for that is the logic is if we do safe work and it's of good quality, we do it the first time the right way, and we aren't willing to negotiate on either of those things, and we're living the principles of the core values that we all believe in, we can't not be productive.
Right.
Because there's no room for waste. There's no room for inefficiency. So we don't need to come out and say productivity is a focus area. If you just do this, then you will be productive by default.
100%. I think last year we added a lot of color to that triangle. I think we really dove deep into it and it had a lot of impact. We talked about our mission, our vision, and all that stuff, but I think that really sank in most. And I think this year, continuing on with really bringing that to life through these principles, I think it's really starting to hit home.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I felt like there was more takeaways.
Yeah.
Of things to go do. So jumping in, the one at the top, you mentioned it, take extreme ownership. That one is at the top for a reason. That's an important one because that's an overarching tie with everything else that follows. And really what it means in short premise is it's nobody else's fault. Nobody's going to come save you. You're either going to jump in and do it yourself and own it, or it's not going to happen. And the good part about that is you get to own the result. If you're willing to put the work in, if you're willing to put the effort in, if you're willing to be intentional about the habits that you build and what comes of that, you get to earn the result. But on the other end of that, you also get to earn the failure if you don't. And if you decide not to put the work in, you decide to cut corners, you're going to own that too. So
well, that's real accountability. When you take full ownership of yourself, and you take full ownership of your crew, you take full ownership of whoever you're leading, whoever you're in charge of, there's no hiding from mistakes. There's no hiding from learning and making yourself better. There's that ownership piece is really huge.
And there will be mistakes along the way, but if you're going to own them, you're going to fix it, right? And you're going to learn that lesson, and then you're going to build the habits that you need to build and not make that mistake twice. And a lot of it is we're on a very aggressive growth path as a company, and how can we decentralized buy-in to things like ownership? So how can your piece of the pie, how can you own your piece of the pie and do your part? And then same with you, Griff, same with you, Mark, same with me. And if everybody has that mindset of like, this one is mine and I'm going to own this and do it the best that I can, and then we're all doing that, I mean, how can you lose? Right?
Absolutely. What do you think, Griff?
Like he said, taking that extreme ownership, this comes from a very good book. The idea of it is awesome. And if you just take that into your personal life, see what happens. If you can't do it at work, try it first in your personal life. Right. Working out, diet, whatever that is. You see the results in your personal life, and then you get into, see what can happen.
Yeah, start with the book.
Right.
I mean, it's a book, right? It's a whole. Take extreme ownership. We didn't come up with this. This is Jocko Willink. It's a very well-known code to live by, but damn, it works.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, nobody's coming.
Yeah, no one's coming to save us.
We're either the story.
We're either going to do it ourselves, or it's not going to get done, right? And when you refuse to accept it not getting done, then that leaves one option.
So the next commandment is make safety natural. What did you mean? What do you mean by that?
This is a quick one. I think this one is self-explanatory to some extent, but it's worth saying this. Make safety natural means that we don't go out there and say there's a safe way to do things because we don't accept that there's not a safe way to do things. There's only one option, right? And that's to do it the safe way. That's to do it the right way. And we're not going to waver on that. So making safety natural means it's not a choice. It's just what we do. It's just who we are.
I love it.
So make it part of who you are. You have to.
I think it's about having a zero tolerance mentality. Call it out, unsafe work, live by example, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, it takes effort because you see a guy doing something he shouldn't be doing with no gloves. It's tough to go stop the guy and say like, hey man, really should be wearing the gloves, right? Like you could cut your hand, you could do this, maybe you won't, but that's just not who we are. So just wear the gloves, you know. But it just takes one to start to do that, and then it starts to ripple effect around the crew, and it ties right into the next one, which is never cut corners. That really ties back to quality and not taking the easy road and not accepting that we're going to perform subpar work in any way, shape, or form. It also ties back to building habits, and the habits that you build are going to produce the result that you have. One of the sayings that are on our reminder sheet that we have out there company-wide is how you do anything is how you do everything. And that means how you do one thing repeatedly is going to add up to one big thing of how you are.
I love that. Mark, any thoughts on
the cutting corners, the safety natural? I mean, both of them, they have a pretty hard tie together for me. Going back to the example of the gloves, let's make sure that we have the right gloves. Let's make sure that we are doing things the right way every time. And you have no choice but then to be safe and be profitable at that point. The cutting corners, that's where things start to slide downhill. Yeah. And we just can't allow ourselves to do that.
Once you start down that road, it's real hard to get back.
It is.
I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to do that. I can
I can just do this.
Yeah, I could just do this, or I can just jump in, you know, just real quick. And it's a dangerous thing.
Anytime somebody says it's only going to take a second, that's when things are going to go sideways. Yeah. Every time.
But the thing is if you accept that, if you continue to do that, you're going to do more the next time, and then more the next time. And then before you even know it, you won't even realize it. Now you're building really bad habits, and those habits become natural. And then you get so far off the path that something happens.
We live and we work in very high risk,
it's very much a compliance driven.
It's very compliance driven, high stakes.
High stakes, yes.
There is no room for errors.
No.
And by cutting corners, you're opening up the opportunity for error. And for those of you that don't know, I run gas distribution crews, and they have to perform their work with precision every single time. And you can't afford to cut corners. In a prior episode with Andy Ganna, he talked about a blade of grass getting between a fusion, and it took him days to find this gas leak because of a blade of grass that made its way between the fusion of gas pipe. And when you look at that level of detail, I mean, there is no room for errors. You have to have a zero tolerance mentality when it comes to the quality of the work that we're putting out there. And that goes for everything that we do.
Yeah. And it needs to start with the fundamentals, the boring stuff. You need to master the boring stuff if you're going to do the complex stuff right.
Absolutely. Next up is being an expert of your craft.
I'll preface this one, but I'm going to kick it over to Mark. This really has to do with training and continuous improvement and always chasing the finish line that you're never going to get to, right? And not accepting that where you are today is where you want to be. So this ties back to training, it ties back to setting a goal for yourself and then working relentlessly every day towards that goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I feel like we're at a place where we are able to facilitate learning amongst the groups in a way that we've never been able to do before, which is amazing. We have so many subject matter experts in our company, and being able to bring those folks together with the folks that need the knowledge and helping them transfer that knowledge has been an amazing part, at least of my career and my time here.
Yeah.
This leadership summit is just one example of that. But to be an expert of your craft, it starts right from day one. The folks come through the door, they're kicking it with Griff and spending that week in training. And actually, in some cases, it goes beyond a week, at least just to get them up and running and get them ready to go out to be with the crew. And that training doesn't stop. There's progression that happens afterwards, especially with our gas distribution crews, our civil crews. They're working towards their next level as well. Everybody here is working towards that next level to help us gain momentum, to help move things forward. Yeah. And the 8 commandments themselves actually lend themselves to that.
No doubt. I'm going to steal a portion of a phrase and put my own spin on it. Best doesn't happen overnight. It happens every day.
Yeah, I love that. I think you played that video.
Yeah.
For everybody at the summit, and I think that landed. Actually, you played it twice because you wanted people to really pay attention. And that goes back to what Griffin was saying, is when you take ownership, even in your own personal life, it starts to affect your professional life. And it takes every day in order to kind of become a true master of your craft. When I think about becoming a master of your craft, it's really a mentality thing. It's about being a sponge, never stop learning from the best, learning from the worst, even learning a lesson that you don't have to learn yourself.
and being humble enough to really learn. And I think that's really how you become good.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, watch the good companies,
Yep.
you know, and see how they're doing things and replicate that, but also watch the bad ones and see why they've failed, why they haven't seen success, and try and figure out what those roadblocks are. You know, that video that we showed, it shows an individual starting from scratch, really on a path that wasn't going to lead to success, and then turn it around and start to see improvements along the way, both in personal life and professional life. You know, but we used an analogy in this most recent event this week, referring to a sports team, that sports teams show up to the game to perform. They don't show up to practice.
Mm-hmm.
The practicing happens after hours. The practicing happens during the week, not on the weekends. So in our industry, we show up every day to work, to perform. When are we practicing?
Right.
For many people, never. For many people, you go home, you live your life, right? You live your life on the weekends, doing what you do. You don't think about work. But if you're going to be in an industry where it takes practice to be an expert of your craft, you need to leave yourself time to practice and be intentional about it.
Yeah. That is actually a great mentality to have. I mean, going back to what Griff said earlier about that ownership thing, I'm going to go back to that because, you know, I look at myself, for example, and I say, okay, how can I practice, right? It happens before work. It happens, I wake up an hour early, extra, just so that I can read Extreme Ownership. You know, that book that we talked about last year, it's like, I'm not reading that book during the day. I'm reading that book before work and after work.
And look, that book will help you at work, but it also helps you outside of work.
Right.
Yes.
And the video that we talked about, the things that led to a ripple effect of good things happening at work, all happened in how that individual decided to change his life outside of work.
Yeah.
What are you eating in the morning? Are you waking up early? Are you going to bed early the night before? What are you filling your body with, right? Is it an energy drink at 7 a.m. or is it a water? And how are you preparing yourself to show up on time, ready to roll for the day, not late, you know, shoes untied, kind of last minute? And starting your day and how you start your day is going to affect the rest of the day. It's just inevitable. So if you're behind first thing in the morning, the rest of the day is going to be you catching up.
It takes intention.
Sure will.
Yeah.
It really does. It takes a decision that you have to make for yourself, and it takes intention. You don't by accident become an expert at something. You really do have to work at it and be thoughtful about it. And it's an all-encompassing mentality that you have to have.
Yeah. That's a good lead into the next one, which is walk the walk. And what that really means is how we say we're going to be, how we say we want to be, and what we do need to be the same.
Yeah,
right?
if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk.
That's right, man. That's right. And if you're going to talk about it, but do nothing about it, then don't bother talking about it.
Yes.
Right.
You know, and there is a tie to this when it comes to culture, when it comes to having standards, and that the standard that you're willing to accept, both for yourself and your people, is going to be a reflection of the company that you have. And we could say all the things we want. We could put all the commandments down on paper. But if we're willing to accept somebody cutting corners, or we're willing to accept somebody only being half safe, none of this is ever going to work. Right? Because then we're not walking the walk.
That's good.
And
that is good.
And it needs to be in everything you do, not just some of the things you do.
You got to set the tone. Your crew will follow your work ethic.
Yeah, and to that point, Jordan, I think that's what the coolest portion of visiting these new hires is. They're coming into, you know, let's say the gas side. It's about a week and a half of training. You know, they get 1 week of NEO, but then usually Monday or Tuesday, they're going for that test. If somebody who's never been in the industry before, has been out of high school for 4 or 5 years, has a hard time, they might fail that test and go back for another one. So it might be a full 2 weeks before they get out there. But everything I've seen, from seeing a kid in NEO to going out in the field, all of our leaders that I see already have these facets, whether or not they're on paper and they can name them.
Yeah.
But it's a top-down mentality. Grady Naylor, for example, he came through NEO, hard worker, but you just didn't know. You get a week with him, you don't know. Now I see him, and Lester will tell you that's the hardest working kid. He wants him on every one of his crews.
Yeah.
You know, like he told me yesterday, he'll start saying something, and then Grady's already on his way to do it. He's killing it. So that's what's so cool is you guys and us at DDS have been able to get that buy-in, you know, years ago. So the foremen know what's coming, not only with the training, but having this ownership like, hey, even if it is, that's my back that it's on, you know, so let's do it right.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. And seeing that progress into the new hires, you know?
That's very cool. And it takes a lot of effort. It does too, because if you're as a supervisor or a foreman or a manager, if you're going to go out there and set expectations, and maybe it's in something simple like just being tidy or being organized, and you show up and you pull the foreman aside and you said, hey, job site really is not looking good today. We got to have the spoils moved back over here. We got to get the pipe stacked up nice. You got to get the tools all cleaned up and put back. All right, if you go say that and then they look over at your pickup truck and it's full of dirt and dust and there's stuff all in the bed sticking out and it's just a mess, is it really going to hit home?
No.
Yeah, no way.
No way.
And I'm not saying we got to spit shine our trucks every day, but be presentable.
Walk the walk.
Be organized. Walk the walk. And eventually, you're not going to need to ask because what's natural is going to happen by default by setting the example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rising tide lifts all boats.
That's
type
right.
of thing.
That's right.
That's a good one. I think that's critical to the whole thing working.
You got to live
together.
it. You got to live it. If you're going to expect it and you're going to talk about it, you better damn sure be willing to do it yourself too.
Right.
Heck yeah. Next one on the list is face conflict head on.
Into the storm.
Into the storm.
Into the storm. This one is really when there's a challenge, when there's a conflict, into the storm, lean into it. Don't wait. Don't kick the can. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get bigger, and just do the hard things first.
You had said something earlier. Sean used to say that. What was
he used to say, put the skunk on the table.
Still says it.
Still says it. Which is when there's a problem, don't hide it. Put it on the table so we can work through it. If there's problems and we're going to bury them, whether it's, a problem between people or a problem in the quality of the work, if we don't fix it right away, fast, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And then it's going to come to light. And then it's going to be a trust issue, right? So when there's a problem out there, don't be afraid of it. Don't shy away from it. Lean into it and let's fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you can look at this a couple different ways. So when you look at conflict, you can look at it from internal conflict. You could look at it as conflict at a project level, procedural problem. You can look at conflict many different ways. Everybody struggles with conflict in their own ways, right? Personally, my struggle with conflict is going to be people problem, right? Because I love my team. I love all my people. And I don't want to hurt my people. If I got to have a tough conversation with somebody, that's where I struggle. I don't have any problems tackling problems at a project level. I mean, you kidding me?
Right.
I mean, I'll run through brick walls if I have to. But when it comes time to have a tough conversation with somebody because they're underperforming, I might cringe a little bit about that conversation.
Yeah.
So, but either way, you've got to be, as leaders especially, you've got to face that conflict truly head on.
No,
and don't let it fester.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. Everybody sees it too. Your whole team sees it.
Oh my gosh.
So when they know that you as a leader shy away from those difficult conversations, they're judging you.
Yeah.
And nothing will pull back a great employee more fast than watching a bad employee get tolerated.
That is good.
That's
hitting me.
So once you start to prioritize the conflict, prioritize doing the hard things first, there's a few things that'll come out of it. One is you're going to have less to do because your boxes are going to start to get checked, right? And those things that continue to linger on your to-do list are going to start to go away. But two, you're going to build respect throughout the team of them knowing you as a leader that is not going to shy away from the hard stuff.
Yeah. I think, too, one of the talking points that we had in our kickoff meeting in Cortland was you've got to handle yourself with composure as well when you're dealing with the conflict. I can't tell you how many times I've seen from other people, not DDS, but the way you treat your customer and that level of professionalism goes a long way, right? So when you handle conflict, I mean, it could be internal conflict. It could be conflict with your customer even, but you've got to handle yourself with grit and composure at the same time.
Yeah, no, this doesn't mean you got to go in yelling and screaming like a madman.
Exactly.
But what it means is you need to handle it. And you can handle it just like we're talking right now. You could not break the tone that we're having a conversation with right now, but you're having that conversation, and that's what matters. And look, maybe the conversation starter doesn't resolve what the conflict is, but you open the door.
Yeah.
And you started initiating the path to whatever that solution looks like. But the premise is don't kick the can. There's a quick analogy that we use, and it's cows versus buffalo.
Yep.
And if you have any experience with cattle in a pasture, when there's a storm that rolls in, cows that are fenced in will turn from the storm and they'll walk as far as they can walk until they hit the fence, and then they'll stand, right? And wild buffalo, who are not in a pasture, no fences, will see a storm coming, they'll herd up together, and they'll run as fast as they can through the storm. And it might be hellacious for the herd of buffalo for a few minutes, but they're going to be on the other side of that storm while all the cows are standing with the rain and the wind and the lightning getting dumped on. Right. So the idea there is be a buffalo. When you see a storm coming, herd up, grab the team, run as fast as you can through it, and get through it.
I think it's a perfect segue into the next commandment. And by handling your business professionally, you're earning trust. That is a great commandment. I think not only earning the trust, but keeping it.
Yeah. There's a lot you can say on earn trust. I think one that sticks out to me is authority can be given, and you can have authority, but you can't earn authority.
Right.
You need to earn trust. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Witt I've seen him speak a number of times, but he gives a presentation on when he started in construction, when he was younger than he is today. And he talks about these two guys, Juan and Jose, who were two guys on his crew that showed him how to put manhole rings on. And 10 years later, he's giving talks in front of thousands of people, reaching millions of people on social media. And he's still talking about Juan and Jose.
Wow.
And he doesn't talk about the guy that signed his paychecks. He doesn't talk about his boss at the time. He doesn't talk about the owner of the company. He talks about the two guys that added value to his life by showing him a skill that he didn't know before, and they earned his trust by doing that. They took time out of their day to show this kid that didn't know anything how to put manhole rings on. Something really simple.
Yeah.
But they earned his trust, and it stuck with him into running a multi-million-dollar company that he does and telling that story about these two guys, Juan and Jose.
That's awesome.
You know, and when you think about trust versus authority or versus material things in life, it's not like these guys gave him money or they bought him a car or they bought him a house or helped him get a mortgage. They showed him how to put manhole rings on. Like a really basic, simple thing. But you can earn trust tickets along the way by adding value to people's lives around you just by doing simple things like that.
Totally. When I think about earning trust and keeping it, what I relate that to is having integrity. And when I think about having integrity, it's really about doing what you say you're going to do. That's how you build trust, and that's how you keep it. Do what you say you're going to do and just deliver. And you're going to build that trust.
Yeah, and it takes repetition.
It
doesn't just happen once. You know, you don't deliver one time and then you have trust. It needs to happen 10 times, 100 times, every time.
Consistency, reliability,
reliability and consistency.
And the other thing too is you could do it 100 times, but if you don't do it one time, that trust is gone.
Yeah.
You know, and then you got to earn it back and probably do it 1,000 times after that to really earn it back. So it's not something you can fake. You can't fake earning trust.
No.
I think another way to earn trust is going back to the very first commandment, which is taking extreme ownership, is owning up to your mistakes and then fixing them really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think you can earn more trust by just owning your mistake, being very open and honest about the mistake that you made, throwing the skunk on the table, as Sean would say, but then fixing it. Immediate, like as fast as you possibly can, you know, being the buffalo, so to speak, and just
face it on and go through it.
Own it. Don't wallow in it. Own it. Hey, I fucked this up.
Yep.
Fix it. Right. And I think people will see through the mistake and focus on the result. And focus on, okay, yeah, we messed up, but we fixed it. And this is how we're going to put strategies or processes in place to not screw it up again.
Right.
You know, now if you screw it up 3 times and you refuse to fix it and you refuse to actually take action, you know, then you're probably going to get some question marks. But have the courage to stand up, earn it, earn the trust, own the mistake, fix it, and do it fast.
Yeah, no, that earning trust piece, and owning those mistakes, you know, kind of takes me back to something that went on last summer. I was working on a project and I was working directly with Sean on the project. And of course, that's a man that you don't want to let down, right? Yep. You don't want to mess it up. And something happened, something else happened. And before I knew it, like I had messed up the budget. Like I had a plan. This is what I told Sean it was going to be. And it was not that. And so I have to go up to Sean and I'm like, listen, I'm really sorry. And I hate to be standing here in front of you to tell you about this. You know, I owned it because if I hadn't went up and talked to him, that would have ate me alive.
Well, hey, and that bill's going to come sooner or later. That invoice is going to hit.
Sooner or later.
You know?
Yeah,
so
he's going to
how do you think that, I can probably imagine how that conversation went. It probably ended up good because it was, hey, I own the mistake. This is what it is. But if you didn't have that conversation, you just let it go until the budget was gone and the invoice was hit. You know what I mean? How would that be viewed? And how much trust would you have earned?
Exactly.
It would have went negative.
And the funny thing was, like, I went to him, I told him, I'm like, listen, this is what happened. Yeah. This is where we are now. I didn't account for this. This is more than what I told you it was going to be. And Sean, being Sean, great guy. He's like, yeah, it's not an issue. I had already accounted for this. We're good. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Yeah.
You know, but having not had the experience or having a long relationship with Sean, working directly with him, that was really intimidating for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the biggest thing is you owned it and you did it fast. You didn't let it linger. Right?
Yeah, no.
Because time will kill all deals.
Yeah.
I don't care what kind of deal it is. If you let it linger, time will kill it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that brings us to our last and final 8th commandment, and that is be humble.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a big one in our industry. I think in our industry in general, there's just a lot of ego. There's a ton of ego. Everybody's an alpha, even the women. The women are alphas too.
They are.
And everybody wants to be the alpha, and even the brand new guy on the crew, right? And that can work to your favor. It can work to your advantage in some cases, but it can also really, really hurt you in other cases and set you back. So the premise of this one is, look, if you're the biggest and the baddest in the room, show people. You don't need to say it.
Yeah,
right?
Walk the walk.
Yeah, walk the walk. You don't need to come out and verbalize it.
Right.
And being classy and having humility and practicing that never goes out of style. So if you're the biggest and the baddest in the room, then be the baddest. And people will talk about you. People will notice and they'll talk about you. You don't need to talk about yourself, right? So it's the big one for us. And there's a way that you can practice that. And that's by, on a daily basis, being intentional about finding wins, whether they're small wins, big wins, what have you, and take pride in the win, but give credit to the team. You know, and if you can start to do that and master that, it'll really change some things that you didn't know, or even things that were affecting you as a person.
When I think about being humble, I think about somebody like shooting a basketball and just nailing a sick shot, and then just like walking away and like doing like the thing.
You ever see old Michael Jordan films?
Yeah.
When he hits the three and he just kind of shrugs.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like,
Another day in the office.
Yeah, another day in the office.
Like, this ain't nothing.
Yeah.
Everybody gets
lucky.
there
was a side of him that wasn't as humble.
Right.
You know? But
and there should be, you got to have a little bit of grit, a little bit of edge,
Yeah.
but especially for the newer guys, if they're listening, coming into the industry, eat humble pie.
There you go.
I don't care how simple the explanation is. If someone is explaining something to you, especially your foreman or someone with knowledge, just take it and learn something from it. Even if you already know, don't tell him you already know, because you will be the opposite of humble. And it gives you, in a real world, it gives you more wiggle room. If I was the biggest and the baddest and I mess up on this piece, versus, I'm not sure, show me how to do that. Then if I mess up, maybe it does give me a little bit more room, but be humble. And that ties right into earning trust.
Yeah, right.
know?
Oh, yeah.
You can have a ton of swagger. You can show all the swag in the world by doing it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you don't have a slice of humble pie in front of you on your plate.
Right.
I also think about it so there's being humble on a personal side, right? That is a personal trait, to remain humble. I also think about it as a company. When we perform very well as a team, as a crew, you kind of gain a little bit of confidence, a little bit of that swagger. I would almost go as far as saying, keep your crew humble. Just show up every day, dominate, win, and build that trust with your customer just by simply winning. And then just continue to, like, one domino at a time. Just knock these projects out of the park and do it with that grace. Do it with, that humble aspect. And I think you're going to gain a lot more respect out of the customer, even because they're going to enjoy working with you. They're going to want to work with you more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if you just knock these products out of the park and it's like, hey, nothing but a thing. That goes a long way with the customer.
Someone put something in perspective to me a while back, and part of it is the genesis of all these traits, which are character traits of a person in a sense, right? But somebody described companies in general as all having their own personality. And when you think back to your group of friends in high school, right? There's people that you'd want to hang out with, and there's people you don't want to hang out with.
Yep.
And when you think of companies in general, every company has a personality. And is that somebody that you want to hang out with, or is it somebody you wouldn't want to hang out with?
Oh,
right?
That's a good way to think of it.
So if our company had all these as a personality trait, walking the walk, making safety natural, being humble, earning trust, is that a person you'd want to hang out with or not?
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Probably is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So from a customer's perspective, in the sense of being humble, when we do a good job and there's confidence in us and they acknowledge that, take it with a grain of salt, but be like, hey, yeah, that's what you paid us to do. And we did the work. We're proud of it, but let us keep doing that for you. Right?
Exactly.
We'll get you on the next one. And when you start to earn trust in that way through repetitive confidence and repetitive doing the job well and owning it, both the good and the bad, that's when customers start to become more comfortable with wanting to hang out with you more.
Yeah.
Right, as a company.
This principle of being humble at a global level like that. And I think about the dynamics between working for different customers. When you look at being humble on a personal level, you've got to be coachable, right? It's no different as a company. If we remain humble, working for customer A, they expect a certain, they expect you to perform the work this certain way. And then you work for another customer literally right next door, and they expect you to perform the work in another way. And if you're not humble enough to be able to adapt to that expectation, you're going to create friction within that relationship. You're going to create friction with the work that you're just trying to do for them. And I think it dilutes or it reduces that credibility, that respect, that trust that you earn with that customer too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think being coachable and being able to adapt really ties into being humble as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right word for it almost if we're talking about teaching. You know, you don't want to be humble and then never learn anything. That would be the worst if you're on your second time and you're like, well, actually, I don't know. Why don't you show me that?
Yeah,
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
if you're going to be humble, take that opportunity as, you know, some SME is showing you the way to do it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and learn from it.
Yeah.
It'll put you ahead.
Yeah. And then when you do take advice and you show up the next day and then that SME sees that you took their advice and now you're performing better, well,
Right.
now you're earning trust with them.
Yep.
You know, the
Right.
other
Yep.
way around. So it goes both ways. But yeah, when it comes to our customers, there's nothing better than delivering on what you've promised to do and then taking the perspective of, hey, thank you for the opportunity to perform.
Yeah. I
You know?
love that.
And be humble about it and be real about it, but be confident too.
Love it. I guess as we kind of, what do you usually say?
Oh, we're going to start to land the plane, I think.
Landing the plane.
Yeah.
We're going to land the plane.
Yeah, bring this thing in.
Griffin, do you have any final thoughts? I guess Leadership Summit going into the 2025 season. What are you excited for? What?
I'm excited to get out there and finish out the 2025 year with all these podcasts, see what they end up being, you know. But a recap, I think the third iteration or third year of the Leadership Summit is going to be even better. You know, the first year, we really, like Mike said, we didn't have much time to plan it, but we basically gave them a roadmap. We had a bunch of different stations and we said, okay, here's what each division does. Here's what training does. Here's what civil, gas, engineering, the finance, right? And then this year we were able to open it back up, bring those guys back in and say, okay, now this is what we want to do going forward. This is kind of how we want the company to look, how we want our people to look. So I'm excited to see what year 3 has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
I'm already thinking
paving the
about.
way.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about what year 3 is going to look like.
Mark was already on year 10 last
Wow.
year when we started this thing. He's ready to rent the whole New York State Fair facility out with cranes and excavators. And
we might be
boom
revisiting that. No, seriously though, I think that we've brought everybody in. We've level set. Everybody knows what our divisions do. We're out there as far as recruitment and retention. We're all singing from the same hymnal.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what is going on in the company. We know who the leaders are. We know the general direction. We have those commandments this year that we can follow. We can move forward on those. And if we look at this and we take this one more step, these 8 commandments, that's your roadmap for who you're going to bring in to your company as well. You know,
What boxes can you check?
If we look
know?
at those things as we're sitting across the table from somebody, hey, what about these things? What do you think? You know, you're already halfway there.
Yeah.
We can teach people gas. We can teach people civil. We can teach people the actual hand skills that we need. It's those character traits. That's who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we have to be really intentional. And I think that we are being very intentional at this point. You know, so kind of along the same lines as Griffin, I'm excited to see how this year progresses. I'm excited. We're going to kick off our new hire season with a giant new hire. My friend
Thank you,
across
Jordan.
the table, he's went out and hired the entire world +5.
Yep.
Nice.
And
Totally what I like to
he's
hear.
going to fill our
Bring
classroom
him in.
and fill our training center.
Last year we hired in 145 people, so we're going to top that this year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Far.
we're definitely going
By
to
far.
top
We got
that this year.
26 coming in 2 weeks.
Heck yeah.
We're ready.
Yep.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so we're really excited to get that kicked off and see where the work is in the field, talk to our guys in the field. This is going to be a great year.
Going to be a great year.
I'm excited for it.
Mike, what do you got?
Well, real talk, I'm a pretty even-keeled guy, but I'm probably more excited for this year coming up than I've ever been excited for a year in any years past. And there's a few reasons for that. One, externally, we're a pro-energy country again, which is a damn good feeling.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And drill, baby, drill. We're going to be doing it. So there's just a lot of things, a lot of great things to come in our industry from an energy perspective on getting back to gas, getting back to the infrastructure, getting back to the things that we need from a math perspective just to survive as a population, and building that infrastructure as a population is what we need to do. That's where we need to aim back towards. So it feels good to have some common sense back in that space, and I'm excited for that. So when you couple that with internally, last year was a little bit of a reset on, hey, there's been a lot of change here since 2018, 2020 and beyond. And let's get back to center on who we are, what we do. Let's share some things that we might not have known before, meet some people that we didn't know before, and all get on the same page. And we spent really the past year doing that, right? And paving the runway. And now This year, we're set on that. Everybody, there's no mistaking civil, gas, telecom, engineering. Everybody knows what everybody else can do from a scope perspective. But this year was the year of, okay, now that we're all lined up, we know who's in the front of the boat. We know who's in the middle of the boat. We know who's in the back of the boat. Where are we going with the boat?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want to go with the boat? Right? And who's got the oar? Who's rowing this way? Who's rowing that way? Let's make sure we're all rowing the same way. So we set some clear objectives in 2025 on what the win looks like for 2025.
Yep.
I think if you go ask any of the 140 people that were in there, they would give you the same 5 answers of what winning looks like for 2025. And that's a powerful thing when you can do that. And then 2, when you have these commandments, which are kind of the intrinsic values that you can live both as a person, as an employee, to start to spread our presence to people that might not be here today, but then the workers that we do have, that's another powerful thing. So we got the strategy down, we got the tactical down, we got the roadmap ahead, and now it's on us to go execute. So I'm excited to get out there in the field and reinforce these values, reinforce living it. It's not all going to get done overnight. We're not going to get all 8 of them done in 1 week, but you might be able to pick one. You might be able to pick 2 and really work, really master what they are. And I'm excited to give out some awards too for who's leading the pack out there in the field for some of these. So that might be a little bit of a preview on some positive reinforcement that we're going to be doing. But hell yeah, I'm excited for the year. We're going to be kicking some ass in 2025.
Well, I guess you guys have basically said everything that I would ever say. So one of the things that I'm very excited about is the clarity around Masters of the Underground, the vision and the mission behind that. I'm on board with it. I'm on that boat, and I'm going to start paddling right there with you, brother. Speaking of Masters of the Underground, you're going to see that on our brand new website that I'd love for you guys to check out. It's going to be launching here in the next few weeks. Check us out at ddscompanies.com, and you can really see what we're all about. You can really see that we are truly masters of our crafts. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, we've put a lot of time and effort into our website, into our branding, into our marketing to really tell our story. And hey, if you like what you see, come join our team and then tell all your friends. We'll bring them on too.
Check out that careers page. You're going to see a lot of open positions there as we grow and continue to become masters of the underground and bring new divisions into other territories throughout, the Northeast here. I'm excited for it. Well, I got to say thank you, Mike, for being such a quality leader and leading us to where we need to be.
I'm just walking the walk, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm proud to be part of this team.
Cool.
And it's a really cool thing to see. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Check us out at builtinboots.com. That will bring you to our podcast page. If you're looking for opportunities within DDS, check us out at ddscompanies.com and check out our careers page. And thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Let's go make it happen.
Let's do it.